All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner. Today it is October 8th, and I don't know. I don't know where we're gonna start here. I don't know where we're gonna start. Michigan loses to Washington 20, what was it, 27-17. And we're on our third quarterback of the year and don't look we look lost. Tanner, we look lost.
Yeah, I mean, guys are slipping all over the field. Guys are out of position. Defensive backs getting turned around. Um, I don't know. I really don't know where this team goes from here. Obviously, I have a bye week coming up, which, with that injury report against Washington, a little startling before the game. Like,
Yeah,
oh my
that
god.
was let's start there because I mean, you get through the Minnesota game, and I know we had a couple like Josiah Stewart was out in that game, Will Johnson's out in that game, Samaj Morgan's out in that game, but there weren't any like big on-field injuries. Like I'm sure guys get tweaked, get banged up week to week and whatever, but all of a sudden the out the the doubtful side of it was 10, 15 guys long. So what happened leading up to this week in practice?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Michigan's been pretty fortunate over the last number of years, with Ben Herbert leading the strength and conditioning program. Have really had a lot of injuries. Other than kind of like freak stuff, right? Like last year, Zinter goes down with a fractured leg. Year before that, Corum goes down second to last game of the regular season with, he takes a hit to his knee that causes some damage. Otherwise, Michigan's been pretty healthy,
Yeah.
if I recall correctly. So a little jarring to see. I mean, Amir Hall was out, Derek Moore was out. I know Will was listed as questionable. He still played. Jadis didn't make the trip. Hinton didn't make the trip. I think there was a few other guys that I have in front of me, but yeah, I mean that's a lot of guys. And just speaking of Amir Hall for a secondary that looked kind of lost, might have probably would have been pretty nice to have him on the field at some points during that game. But yeah, it was really like I said, jarring to see. I mean, the list came out and you're like, oh my gosh, like you had no idea these guys were hurt. And obviously they practice with pads throughout the week and run their drills and do some live stuff. But yeah, it was really surprising to see the amount of players just on that list.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a difference it would have made.
Yeah, but it I mean, you want to be full strength going into your first road game of the year, right?
For sure. But it
So
is football. I mean, that's, and
yeah.
that's the thing that we talked about all off season was, yeah, there's a lot of talent, but the drop off and the lack of depth may be something that comes back to bite them. And it,
Well, I mean,
certainly did in this game.
look at just the offensive line there. If you have Jadis out, which obviously him and Crippen have been sharing time, so that one's not
Yeah.
as bad. But Jadis and Hinton both out on an offensive line that has already struggled majorly and is the least deep, position spot that we have on the field. So that right there. And then I mean, let's just get right into it. You start with Alex Orji out there. The offense goes absolutely nowhere for three straight drives. You basically, in my mind, dig yourself a 14-0 hole. Washington obviously goes down, probably should have been 17-0 hole because they miss a field goal on the first drive. Thankfully, Michigan's offense doesn't do really anything at all. And then right from the get-go, Michigan's defense is getting, Washington is going down the field like it is nothing. Like it looked very similar to Quinn Ewers and that Texas team. And this Washington, Will Rogers has been playing well. He hasn't been playing that well. They should not be covering up our defense. I think, Jair Hill really struggled on that first drive. They were definitely picking on him all day. But to start there, we'll talk about the defense. But, I just think from a coaching perspective, what are your thoughts on coming out with Alex Orji? What were you going to see from Alex Orji in those first three drives that you hadn't seen the last 3 weeks? And then you flip to Tuttle and things change immediately. Like that just, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they mismanaged that all year. It didn't look like they installed anything as far as the offensive game plan goes that was going to cater to Alex Orji's strengths and what he brings to the table. Because yeah, look, he's not an ideal passing quarterback, but he does have a lot of talent, and I think you can utilize him in a way that can win you football games. I mean, he's 2-1 as a starter, and comes out in the was it the second quarter when they put in Tuttle. So he didn't get a full game, but I mean, he was 3 of 7 for 15 yards. I mean, if you're at 2 yards an attempt, that's not ideal. So I don't know, man. I really don't know. I think the offensive line is a mess. I think the play calling is a mess. I mean,
I just think here, like a QB under your third quarterback in 6 weeks is not good, and 0 of it is because of injury, right? So, in 2017, right, when Jim Harbaugh was down to John O'Corn, like was down to Brandon Peters, and that was all because of injuries, right? And at least you can say that. But obviously Michigan needed to address things in the offseason that they didn't. I know that the situation with when Sharon Moore actually took over was a huge issue for sure. But they sat there and said, in the spring portal, I know there isn't much left. I know that there were very, very few guys left, but okay, we'll just leave it at that it wasn't addressed. There are a ton of variables, but then the lack of development, the lack of game planning, I know Tuttle's been injured, but then Sharon Moore comes out and says, yeah, he's been ready for a few weeks, and they still weren't going with him. So now I'm just, like, if he would have came out and said, this is the first week that we felt that Tuttle was healthy enough to actually go in the game, then I can deal with that. Right. It's like, okay, he was obviously our best chance to win, but we weren't able to put it in. Sharon comes out and says he's been available for the past few weeks. What were we waiting for? Well, the offense was not humming by any means.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that you're just seeing the kind of in real time the inexperience of Sherrod as a head coach, and I think we maybe should have been more prepared for this. I think maybe a lot of copium, as folks love to say on Twitter, of expecting that, hey, this is a program that's been recruiting at a really good level, not at a great or elite level like some of the other programs in college football, but at a good level. And so you think that with the talent that they brought in, with Sharon kind of being Jim Harbaugh's understudy, that hey, this is going to be okay. Through the first 6 weeks, I mean, you're potentially looking at a team that could easily be 2-4. By the way, I mean, not to be a negative Nancy.
I don't even think it's could. I think it's should. Right, like outside of Kalel Mullings being superhuman against USC, they did not deserve. We said it right on this podcast right after the game. Probably did not deserve to win that game, and then epic collapse in the fourth quarter versus now Minnesota goes out and beats USC. So I don't even know what to think of that, but they aren't a great football team. So very well should be 2-4 right now.
Yeah. And the thing that is concerning to me too, because I've seen a lot of comparisons to 2017. The thing with that is if you subscribe to analytics and algorithms that are out there, my favorite is SP Plus from Bill Connolly over at ESPN, used to be at SB Nation. So in 2017, Michigan finished the year as the 13th best team in the country with the 49th ranked offense and 5th ranked defense. Right now, they are 27th with the number 68 offense and number 12 defense, and that defense feels kind of high still. And this is outside of the COVID season. This is Michigan's lowest ranking to that algorithm since 2014. And that was Brady Hoke's final year, going 5-7. So it doesn't feel good. And because you have 3 first-round picks on defense, potentially 4, depending on Josiah Stewart, right? And you have, other future guys that are probably athletic and skilled enough and talented enough to play in the NFL.
I counted it yesterday on the depth chart, like probably at least 7 guys that are going to be in the NFL in a year from now. At least. And that was being on the conservative side, like not even saying like a Jair Hill could figure it out or Makari Page could be, guy. Like, right. So, yeah, go ahead.
So it's just very frustrating. The defensive line has played really well. Otherwise, I mean, the linebackers have been inconsistent. Um, you know, Brian John Mary, like it's tough to blame any singular person or be mad at anybody for the 2020 season. It was just kind of an epic collapse. But like, I don't know. I just feel like going out and getting the linebacker coach of your worst season in however long, maybe wasn't the move. And then also, I think Lamar Morgan is a really good coach. I'm really still excited about him. But having him coach the entire secondary, when you have a special teams coach, like the special teams, yeah, Dominic Zavada is really good, but like how much of that is on the special teams coach, right? You have 10 spots and you have one guy dedicated to special teams. You've got Lamar Morgan coaching the entire secondary group. So I don't know if maybe he stretched too thin. And then just the play calling defensively, I think, is just, again, something that we've continued to have issues with. And we're not going to sit up here and pretend like we're X's and O's guys. I mean, I watch football at a very basic level, basic understanding. But it just seems like guys are out of position. Guys are not coached well to rally to the ball. The amount of times that guys just fly in without any sort of like recognition of, hey, I may have help, so let me take this angle. Like they just fly in and get beat and slip. On Saturday, it was atrocious. It's just I don't know how to explain it, Justin, but it's just there's just so many issues, and we can obviously talk about the offense too. But like there's just so many issues that. I don't know, man. I really don't know what this is going to look like moving forward. Well, but I don't have the warm and fuzzies.
I'm shivering in terms of the warm and fuzzies not being there. Absolutely shivering. I think that if you told me, we were talking about this a little bit pre-show, if you told me that the offense was really going to struggle this year, I can deal with it, right? Because I know everything you lost. And, we kind of went into the season thinking like, all right, our defense is going to carry us. We probably can go 10-2 just based off of how good and how talented this defense is, right? Like that was all pretty much everyone's analysis going into this. It's like 9-3, 10-2 based on, the quarterback situation, blah, blah, blah. But the defense is going to carry it. Okay. Well, then all of a sudden you have the offensive issues that you've had, and this defense, I think John U. Bacon is one of the guys that's like he's a guy that's pretty level-headed in terms of Michigan and gives like, all right, pretty unbiased and not firing from the hip analysis. And I thought that he put it pretty bluntly, expecting U of M's offense to struggle after losing their starters, but this goes beyond that. Most surprising is the weak fundamentals on defense, including tackling and stupid penalties. Coaching is an issue. So everything that you just said, I totally agree with, in the fact that it's like, if we're just getting beat at times or the other team's making great plays, sure. But like this defense looks lost a lot of times. I tweeted out one specific play where it went for a first down over the middle. Makari Page is one guy trying to guard three receivers in a trio formation. We're in trips.
Yeah, the nickel's on the other side where there's covering nobody. And right, the running zone, right? So it's like you got to get guys to your spot, but that was an easy first down. Well, Justin, this was texted into our group chat. Let's just go ahead and read these off because defensively and offensively, because it's kind of sickening. Pass defense nationally 114th, third to last in the Big Ten at 16th. Rush defense top 5 in the country, number 3 in the Big Ten. But if you're able to just throw the ball, then why would you run it? Third down defense, brutal, 16th in the Big Ten, 90th nationally, giving up 41% conversion rate on third downs. Scoring defense is okay, kind of bend don't break mentality, but 56th in the country and 16th in the Big Ten, and total defense 48th nationally, 14th in the Big Ten. This is a team. How many other teams have 3 first-round picks on defense, 2 on the interior D-line and 1 corner? Those are some of the most impactful players in football. And you've got another couple guys on the edge. Josiah Stewart certainly could play his way into a first-round pick. Derek Moore was almost a 5-star coming out of high school, has flashed a lot, has played really well. I still, like, again, the defensive line, I have no problem with the defensive line. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from TJ Guy. I think he's going to be a good player for us this year and next year.
The
there's some
defensive
young guys.
line has, and let's put it bluntly, it saved this defense's ass from not being
lot.
even worse than what's going on
Yes.
right now.
It's mind-boggling. And Will Johnson, as talented as he is just not looked. I mean, he's made plays, right? He's had the big pick sixes, but like, you know, you look at the third and whatever that they convert on a penalty, and I'm not going to put all that on Will. That ball was tipped, by the way, but Will didn't really, had no chance to be able to even see the ball. And so it's just like, you know, reckless plays, a lot of penalties, a lot of drive extending, back breaking penalties. It's just tough to watch when, even when Michigan wasn't winning national championships or Big Ten championships, the defense always came to play 90% of the time, right? And there was a couple times they got against Ohio State. But otherwise, that defense, from the moment Jim Harbaugh got here, whether it was DJ Durkin or Don Brown, you know, through the COVID season, like the defense was always pretty consistently good up until 2020. And so it's just kind of jarring because there's a lot more high-end talent on this defense than there were on those teams, except for maybe 2016. So I'm just wondering, what's the issue? You know, is it the coordinator that got fired from his last two defensive coordinating spots in the NFL that's making $2.3 million right now? I don't know. Maybe.
It starts there, no doubt, right? It absolutely starts there. You know, I think Wink is, yeah. I don't even know what to say because, again, you know, for us, I'm not breaking down every single play like, hey, this is where this player should have been lined up, and this is what, you know, this is where the coverage broke down. But from the general, like, what's going right? I think the defensive line is getting to the quarterback by themselves, which, again, not sure why you need to blitz 7 guys then consistently, 7-8 guys. So I'm not really sure there, but you know, you run down the line of okay, not getting the play in time ever. Guys are looking around, not knowing where they're supposed to be. Busted coverages constantly. They're on the wrong side of the field. The fundamentals of slipping, not being in a good position, tackling is an issue. Like, you just keep going down the line, and it's like, okay, this defense won a national title last year. They held one of the best offenses in Washington. That Washington had one of the most ridiculous offenses in the country. They held them to what, 13 points, right? It's nearly the same defense outside of a couple guys. And let's be honest, you know, Rod Moore, Mike Sainristil, Mike Barrett, Junior Colson, those guys, you know, Chris Jenkins, those guys are very, very impactful. But you still have, like we've said, 7 NFL talented guys. So I'm gonna put it this way: what happens after this season when you lose all of those guys?
You have to go to the portal, and I don't know if Michigan is built to recruit a ton of impactful guys out of the portal. They've been very good at complementary pieces, but you kind of see it right now where they weren't able to go and get a receiver. And there's some things that are probably outside the program's control and Sharon's control. I get that totally. But you know, you're going to have to pray that guys develop. And from what I'm seeing right now and the way that the juniors are playing, I don't know if I can bank on that.
I don't go to church enough for God to give me, you know, that. Like, I need to go to church a lot more.
This is on you. Yeah, this is on you. You stopped going after last year, and this is what we get.
Well, I did go to church that one morning to pray to thank the Lord for Columbo. But other than that, you know, Saturdays have been a lot, so I've been tired on Sunday mornings. But I don't see how it's working. And listen, I don't want to be, I truly don't want to be this guy where it's like overreaction through 6 games, right? And with Sharon Moore and Kirk Campbell and Wink Martindale, and say, oh, you need to, like, it's fire everybody season, right? I'm not there quite yet, but I do think that this needs to be addressed. And it's honestly both the defensive coordinator position and the offensive coordinator position needs to be addressed. It needs to be evaluated. And this is what Jim Harbaugh was so good at. He he said, all right, obviously the Don Brown thing he held on to way too long for sure. But when an issue needed to be addressed, he usually addressed it, and then it changed. And so, um, I don't know. I do think that you're realizing how good of a hirer Jim Harbaugh was as well, because every single time that you lost somebody, then he replaced them with the next greatest thing, right? And obviously, Sharon Moore has not had to hire anybody. This is his first time hiring anybody. And, some things that people are comparing Wink to Don Brown. I get that. But even Don Brown didn't lose these games. He beat the shit out of inferior teams. And so, I think it needs to be addressed. And especially like you said, he's, the second highest paid defensive coordinator in the country, right? It absolutely needs to be addressed.
It does. And to your point about Jim Harbaugh, I think part of the reason he's so good at identifying coaches to hire is that his Rolodex is just so deep, right? He comes from a coaching family. His brother coaches in the NFL. His dad coached for a long time. He played in the NFL for a long time. He's been at a lot of places. And so this is probably the growing pains that you're going to see with Sharon, where Sharon's a young guy. And so he has, not as deep of a phone book to reach out to guys with, right? Because you look at the staff hires this year. Steve Kasula was an analyst at Michigan for 3 years. Wink Martindale coached under John Harbaugh, right? Brian John Mary was here in 2020. Esposito is a great hire. Again, I love Esposito. And I think Lamar Morgan, again, I think, it's tough to coach safeties and corners, right? And so, having a fully dedicated special teams coach when your returning punter is 71st in the country in average per punt is tough, right? Yeah. Like because Jay Harbaugh did special teams and whether it was running backs, and Chris Parcher's also did it, whether it was, Chris Parcher's coaching the safeties or the linebackers, with Jay Harbaugh, he was coaching running backs, tight ends, I think safeties as well. I mean, and that's the thing too, like, I think people are maybe starting to realize too how elite the coaching staff was. I think we kind of knew, in the offseason, we're all pretty bummed when a lot of those guys left, but, you think about Jay Harbaugh, future NFL head coach, in my opinion, I think that he's going to get to that level. Jesse Minter, future NFL head coach. Mike McDonald's already obviously doing a really good job with the Seahawks, who was on the staff in 2021. So, yeah, I wonder, like, I'm with you that they need to be evaluated. What are those hires going to be? Because if they're not going to be a marked improvement, then it doesn't matter. Like, if we're just going to see the same type of guys, right? So, going and getting Wink, I mean, I think we all kind of talked ourselves into it this offseason, but I didn't love it at the time.
I mean, you ask any Giants fan, and they're like, "What do you?" I have a friend who's a Michigan and a Giants fan, and they're like, "This is the worst thing ever," right? So, I think what I had hoped was, all right, you struggle at the NFL level, and then a lot of people do come back to college, and they can outcoach other college coaches, right? One thing I do want to say though is like, you do have to give it up to Jedd Fisch. Jedd Fisch is
I was just going to say, he outcoached the shit out of Michigan staff.
Oh, by far. And that, you know what? He is part of the Harbaugh tree, right? So it's like, you kind of have to put that up there. I mean, but I think I look at what's frustrating to me, honestly, right now, is you look at what Washington's doing. And obviously they have been undisciplined at times too. They've lost close games that they should have won. But they turned everything over and still were able to, all right, we're going. And hey, Tanner, I don't know if you know this, but we played them in the Natty too. So timing was of the same essence for them. But
yeah, and they lost everybody as well.
How many guys? Literally everybody, right? It's the nearly same situation. And they look
competent.
They looked at least put together, right? Like, they have their issues for sure, but they went out and addressed the quarterback situation. And like, I just I don't understand how we can look like we did while they look like they did. So I think that's one of the more frustrating parts to this for me. And then I don't know. The other thing is just like, we don't look like we want it, man. I just I just don't see any like true will to be like the way that I was putting it yesterday, actually, as I was just talking about it with some people, is like in 2023, Michigan went out every week and played like it was do or die. We are going to win this game or die trying. Like I know Jim Harbaugh said that, and it literally they lived that. They lived up to that. And it was like, we're gonna go out here, we're gonna play to the absolute best of our ability and leave every single thing on the field every week. That's how they played. The way that Michigan in 2024 is playing is even when they got out, obviously you saw it in the Minnesota game of like they went into coast mode immediately, and we've seen that all year now because the second halves and the fourth quarters have been so bad. But dude, even when we took the lead, it felt like we took the like that was when we fell apart, and it obviously wasn't a big lead, but it just looks like you know what, like if we go out and win, great. If we don't, I'm gonna get my post game meal and get on the plane and fly back anyway. You know, I again, it's hard for me. It's hard for me to sit here and say that I'm not in the locker room every week, right? I know these guys want to win. There's no doubt about it, but they just don't have that same mentality that you saw from last year, where it was like we're gonna do this or it's over. Like we're gonna do this at all costs.
You know who else plays like that? That just, we've been watching over the last couple of months is the Detroit Tigers. Is they bring their own juice, right? You see Spencer Torkelson, catching the second throw of a double play and just fired up. Tarek Skubal fired up, right? Like, I don't need you to be, overzealous with your celebrations, but like, give me something. Like, get excited, man. It's supposed to be fun, right? Like, you're in a road environment and you're making plays. You didn't make enough to win, but you're making plays, and it's just like, I don't know. It's like a golf clap sometimes with these guys. I don't get it.
You want to know what actually came up on my? It was this week 3 years ago, was 2021
Nebraska.
at Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin. Okay.
At Wisconsin, which was like the precursor to the Nebraska thing, where we took over jump around for them, and it was at that time Michigan hadn't won a big road game like in ever. Right. That was like Harbaugh's thing, right? Was he hadn't beat a decent team on the road. We hadn't won in Madison in forever. And then Michigan goes out and plays incredibly well. Right. And they had the most juice ever. Aiden Hutchinson was leading this team. They take over jump around. We're going nuts on our sideline. Wisconsin was like, what the fuck? What do we do now? And it was the opposite yesterday, where like, we felt like I don't know. I mean, just multiple videos that you see, multiple things where guys just, I know Donovan came over on the sideline and did like a players only meeting, on the sideline trying to get guys fired up. And I got to give props to Donovan because like for a guy that has been up and down and struggled and all that, like he is still doing everything he can to be a leader.
His attitude is awesome. Like we talked about it last year when things weren't going his way. Like just a great kid, and had a great game by the way on Saturday. And
he's one of the bright spots, right?
Yeah, I mean he had a really good game, and I don't know, man. It's just, it's really frustrating because you go from like, you think about, 2021, right? Michigan taking over, jump around, and then Nebraska does their light show, and Michigan's getting after it, and, just having a lot of fun. And you've got a lot of, natural leaders on those teams, right? You think about Hutch is on the 21 team. JJ, even as a freshman, is a guy that was, pretty.
It was a perfect bookend, right? Like, the young buck and the old vet that were both your leaders, which I think just rounded out the line.
Well, in 22, you got Mikey Samers still talking on the sideline at Ohio Stadium, like we have them right where we want them, right? And then 2023 against Ohio State, the moment that comes up is Zach Zinter goes out, and the Michigan crowd really kind of rallies the team. But man, they just, from that moment when Trente came in, right? I don't foresee that ever happening with this team, which is just completely strange to me.
I think that honestly, what it comes down to here I have had long talks with Mikey Sanderson, and that like humble brag for sure because he's
Yeah,
like
sick, dude.
he's goat talk, right? He's like on the Hall of Fame for Michigan players. But like even after here's something that I point back to. After the TCU game, he and I sat down, we chatted for a little bit. After that TCU game, where obviously it was a, you know, very, very painful end to the year, right? He told me, he's like, we all thought, he's like, in my brain, I thought we are just going to go down and score that last touchdown and JJ was going to do it and we're going to go win. He's like, I was 100% convinced of that until the clock hit zero. And that was, he believed that even when they were having the worst game ever, right? So that's the difference to me right now is the 21, 22, and 23 team, they were so confident in themselves. They knew they were going to go beat people. They were, and what does that come from? Being ultra prepared, being very disciplined, having great leadership, but they just knew they're like, we're going to go do it. And there's no reason to think otherwise. I think right now there's so much doubt in all these guys' brains. And it is very, you can see it on their faces when it's like, I don't fully know if I can do this right now. Right. And I just think, you know, that starts with Blake. It starts with JJ, where it was like they went about themselves in a way that it was like so confident in their own abilities. And we just don't have guys with that currently. And I even like, not, this isn't a shot at Will Johnson, but like right now it even looks like he's doubting himself. And he is probably the most talented person, Michigan football player to, you know, come through in a long time, right? Just from a talent perspective. And so there's something mentally right now that I think that like I just, you know, I think you see it in the coaches too. Is Kirk Campbell really confident in himself with what he's calling? Right? Is Wink confident in himself? They don't feel prepared. So I mean, there is a ton that goes on mentally in the sport of football and in sports in general. And right now they need a mental coach more than ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's like any walk of life, right? Any profession, anything you do at a high level. You don't always want to have confidence. And to your point, it's about being prepared and being ready, but also having that belief within that whatever you were trying to accomplish that you can do. You know, last year coming in, I think not just the team, but everybody, you know, at least around here and maybe in the country thought, hey, this team's good enough to win a national championship. And maybe, you know, you have a lot of guys leave and it's like, well, we did that. And I don't know if we can do it again. And that starts to creep in a little bit. So, yeah, it's tough, man, because I really did think coming in. I mean, on paper, this should be a team that can compete for a playoff spot, right? With the expanded playoff, you know, you get a win over USC, right? That doesn't look so good right now, but like, you know, if you told me coming in, hey, they're 4-1 heading to Washington, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of where I would expect, right? Because then you potentially, you know, get to Oregon. Like I said last week, I thought they could get to Oregon and be 7-1 going into that game with games against Illinois and MSU.
And then who knows?
Right. So, you know, it's just frustrating because this team is so talented on paper for them to kind of crumble like this. And, you know, the one stat that I saw from Sam Webb on 247 is pretty damning about the defense. Just going back to this, they are 133rd in the country giving up pass plays of 10 or more yards. There's 134 FBS teams. That's insane. That's absurd. I don't even know how to like quantify what is going on here. So it's just really frustrating. And, but like I told you before, you know, maybe if this is, look, if you told me, hey, look, buddy, 2024 is going to be ass, but you're going to get a natty, I'd be like, hell yeah. Bro.
I think, listen,
you know?
I know,
not to give credit to the no block, no rock guys, because I want more, damn it. But
I
like,
know.
it is
I'm, go ahead.
No, I mean, it is like one of those things where it's, you take the great and you take the not so great sometimes, right?
I get it. Not every, like, I think I'm very realistic that like not every, there are some people who are like, oh yeah, we like need to go 15-0 every year. And it just like, that just doesn't happen. Right. But I think that I'm a little bit over, hear me out. I'm over like, hey, we got a natty and we can just suck forever, right? Or
I don't
maybe
want
not
that.
not forever, but like we can just be like 6-6. And I don't think it goes that far for me. I think it would have gone far enough to like be like 9-3 if we go 9-3 this year and then we're feeling good, like, all right, we're gonna build back up. Like it was like a little bump in the road and then we're trending back up. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with how this is looking right now, where it's like just a
No. I meant just like my personal feelings.
yeah.
Right. I like taking just the loss in a vacuum. It's like cool. Looking at the overall picture, I don't feel so great. I don't feel great. And I don't know if it can get rectified.
Well, I mean, I know we're talking
tough.
more like big picture right now, but like going back to some stats here, which Scott Bell put this out there. There are 5 Big Ten wide receivers that have more catches than all of Michigan's wide receivers combined this season. 15 different Big Ten wide receivers have more receiving yards than all of Michigan's wide receivers combined this season, and 14 have more receiving touchdowns.
Hey, have you heard of this really cool thing that they have in college football? I don't know, really cool. It's called the transfer portal. You go get guys that are like current college players that are leaving their school, and so you could probably go get some wide receivers there if you didn't have faith in your room. But again, the quarterback situation is kind of trumping all of that. So it's like, how much is that is on Samaj and Tyler, right? Like those are good players. We've seen those guys make plays with a great quarterback, right? So I guess I don't know.
It's all connected. You're right on that for sure. It's all connected. But then Spath put this out there too, that Michigan's leading wide receiver, Samaj Morgan, is on pace for 26 catches in 156 yards on the season. That 156 yards should be what what teams do in a game, right? What one player does in a game.
You get that in 2 catches.
Like that's where, for me, I agree with you on like the natty it has me, I'm okay for a little bit, but I'm not, it doesn't cover for this bad of a display.
Can I just say real quick, because I just said it could happen on 2 catches. I think Cornelius had back-to-back catches on 2 plays from scrimmage for 144 yards, if I do the math right, against Ohio State in 2 plays. Took like 3 minutes.
From a handoff merchant too, like, oh my God, how do you do that?
I mean, I'm just making myself sad now. So
I know I struggle. I think that like the biggest question for us that we have is like, okay, where do you go? You have a bye week now, right? So thank God. I'd say thank God for the bye week, right? I guess, except for the fact that we
just for me
well on this, but
at least I gotta go to a pumpkin patch or something on the bye week.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, this is
take my mind off of it.
This is definitely like the time that you say, "Hey, honey, let's go
well,
to the apple orchard."
This week though is crazy. This is like the week, right?
I know.
So, but yeah, let's go in the morning. Yeah, if you do it at 9 a.m., let's be back by like 11:30.
Yeah,
but we get silver lining. We get to watch all these amazing games this week and not have to stress, right? Potentially about the Tigers if they go to Game 5 on Saturday.
We do have the Tigers. The Tigers are a bright spot for us.
How about last night? That was unbelievable.
I do love seeing a stadium in Ohio leave just absolutely silent from a team in Michigan coming in and beating their ass.
It's happened. It's happened before.
I have seen it. So I'm gonna be at Comerica on Wednesday for Game 3. So
I would like to, but it's expensive and I have obligations. So you have fun for me. Right? Enjoy those $12 beers.
Dude, Detroit's gonna be incredible. So I'm excited about that. But I think for this Michigan team, man, like, we've kind of said it every week now. It's like, okay, the trajectory of this team is based on the next game, right? And you win the USC game, and it's like, oh shit, we can do this. And then you barely beat Minnesota, and it's like, okay, where do we go from here? Then you go out and lay an egg against Washington, and it's like, okay, seriously, where do you go from here? if you're a team, and I know I was made aware that they called like a an emergency meeting on Monday morning to figure some shit out, I would assume. Like, hey, who do we want to be from here on out? But you look at the strength of schedule for the rest of the year, right? All of a sudden, you have to go to Champaign and Illinois looks good. You have to play Indiana, they look good. Oregon comes to town. Ohio State, you got to go to Columbus still, right? So it's like, all right, how is this going to end up? And if you go out and you're sitting, I don't know, if you go out and go 6-6 this year, I mean, man, that is tough. That is tough.
Do you sandbag for the 2 rivalry games?
Yeah,
I'm down.
I didn't even name Michigan State right now, but like they've gotten their ass kicked the last 2 weeks, but
It's gonna be a rock fight.
It's going to be probably the worst football game ever. Just like undisciplined and turnovers. But like, this is where MSU has always had Michigan's number in these types of situations. And so, like, if you're Sherrone Moore, you cannot lose to Michigan State this year.
Yeah,
We'll get there when we get there. But
I don't want to get there.
I'm with you on like they should be game prepping for MSU right now, if I'm being honest. Yeah. But the problem is they're not good enough to just like not game prep for Illinois, right? Like they're not nearly good enough. So I mean it feels like it's a very negative time right now. And I just think that you had chances to win the game. Tuttle, we haven't even talked about Tuttle.
Fine. I mean,
I think he like, the fumble is just like a weird play where like
he should have rolled right. His right tackle had the leverage to collapse the defensive player towards the pocket. So if he rolls right, he probably can look downfield or at least scramble for a few yards. Because I think it was first down, wasn't it? It was right after the Mullings conversion, which Cole Mullings gets 14 carries. 4 of those are on that drive where they fumbled just consecutively to get a first down. Which again, Donovan was 14 for 95 with a touchdown, so like he's having a really good game. But and then I mean the interception, you're down 7, you're just kind of forcing it to your best player.
He's just trying to make something.
So, but the offense did look a lot better, and it's like it is kind of crazy what an offense that kind of is predicated on running the football looks like when you can't have 10 guys within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So, like, they actually had 2 safeties, and they had to have a little bit more depth.
Jed Fish literally say word for word. Somebody said, like, what did you have to change when Tuttle came? And he's like, we had to play a normal defense. That's what he said. No shit. Like it.
I mean, dude, they just had a single safety, and then like you looked, and everybody's within like 7 yards, and you've got like 7 guys. You have defensive backs on the receivers. Everyone else is in the box. That's literally it against Alex Orji. And then Tuttle comes in and they start moving the ball. And to his credit, they went on a 17-0 run.
Right.
And just the turnovers were killer. And a game where Ernest House makes a hell of a play on that deep drop to get that interception, and then you turn it over and they have great field position. And then they get a 30-yard run to get down inside the 5. And then you have a 3rd and goal, and you just get, you got to, because they overturned it, right? On the second round. And so you have 3rd and goal to 1, and it's like, that was that easy? Like, you just, nothing.
Nothing.
It was tough, man. It was definitely tough to watch, but we've got a bye week. So I'm gonna enjoy that as just stressful.
I mean, I am too. I think that you have to look at it like, all right, we've got a quarterback that can competently throw, right? And so it does change the offense. And so you have to look at it like, all right, let's build on what we saw from that 17-0 run, right? Let's look at just that and say, all right, can we go do that for 4 quarters? Once again, though, this team has not played four good quarters, right?
No.
And so that's obviously an issue. But what can you build on what Tuttle brought to the table and still, establish a running game? I think that there is a possibility. Now, there are tons of things to address. There's no doubt about that. But there's a possibility that you can build on what you saw from that 17-0 run. So I don't know, man. There are too many negatives and not enough positives. That's for sure. And so I'm looking for them to go into the bye week and see what happens from here. And who knows? Who knows? It's hard to say. It's hard.
Hey, you know what else is coming up though, and I'm obviously not giving up on the football season. Football's my favorite sport, but Dusty May and the boys exhibition October 20th against Oakland. Very excited to see these guys play. So, it's the best time of year, man. Regardless of all the stuff going on with our team, you've got baseball postseason, you got NBA, NHL starting, college basketball's about to start. Obviously, NFL's a full swing. Hockey, it's a great time to be a sports fan, man. So we got to be thankful for what we do have.
Yeah. I appreciate
I'm just trying to bring you up, brother.
I appreciate your outlook. So, all right. Well, we'll be back to talk some more about this as Michigan goes into the bye week at 4-2, right?
Yeah, 4-2, 2-1 of the Big Ten.
Just all right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. All right. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube, and BlueBy90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.